Welcome to Healthy and Active in the Couve. I am Nick Medlock. I'm a certified personal trainer through NASM, also a certified nutrition coach, and a whole lot of other things we don't need to get into. But as with me, as always, is Dr. Trent Corey. And how's it going, Trent?
Doing great, Nick. Good to see you, man. Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about what you had going on at the conference recently, and just always happy to discuss anything with you.
Well, this is going to be fun. So, part of what Sherry McMillan does with her coaches, which I'm one of the trainers here at Northwest Personal Training, is continuing education through conferences like the Ideal World Conference. And this trip for me was an intense 4 days of continuing education. That's not just lectures. I had to work out a lot. So the way I scheduled it, I could have chosen better as far as how much exercise I. But the 2 days were just nonstop exercise, learning new techniques, different movement patterns and things, and then the third day was more recovery, which was fun. But what I loved about this is it just reinforced what we've been talking about as the body as an integrated unit. And where I thought was more esoteric and fringe things that we've been talking about is now becoming more mainstream. Like a lot of the things we talk about the feet, about integration of the feet and hips and shoulders and all these things is becoming more and more mainstream, which is exciting to me because 15 years ago when I was studying a lot of this stuff, it was like nobody was talking about it. And like maybe chiropractors and physical therapists and massage therapists knew Thomas Myers and the anatomy trains, but more and more at these conventions, I'm seeing people are talking about the full integration, more fascia and more things like that. So I want to share with you the exciting things that reinforce what we talk about, as well as some new things that I learned. And some different companies, like Naboso is one of them that I can remember, but there's a lot of different companies out like that have these proprioceptive spike kind of things on their equipment. So like if you take like a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball and you do foam rolling on your feet, they've got these little spikes. Some of them are larger than others. It just depends on what you're going, but it gives more stimulation to the nerves and fascia and everything. And I kid you not, like we did testing, you just stand on one of these balance boards, and then you do a front fold. And then the foot that was balancing on it now has more mobility just from the stimulation fascia.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating, just all these little trigger things. But the one thing I wanted to bring up first was there's a group that I met. Nobody had heard of them until recently, but they're getting more renowned. And they were at this IDEA conference, and they're called the Athletic Therapy Group, I believe. And if I say that wrong, I'll correct it, in the notes. But they are fascinating. This guy. He saw all of the gaps in what he understood for the personal training world and kind of researched physical therapy and all these other things. And he's just trying to get people out of pain. And one of his courses, he started off saying, you can't outcoach a wonky shoe. And so like he started from the ground up, kind of like what we've been doing with our talks. And we all threw our shoes in a pile and we started to examine the shoes. I'm going to take my shoes out for a second because I want to show kind of what we went over. And I've done this before with some of my clients and when I was working with chiropractors in the past, and it's fun. But he went even more in depth. But kind of the thing that he would look for, and we had some expensive shoes that were in the pile that were just purchased. And what we were examining is the discrepancies or consistencies in the toe boxes. Even in the elevation of the heels and fresh out of the factory, like these Air Jordans were even inconsistent, different toe box sizes, different lengths. They hadn't even been worn in yet. So different heights. And so you can imagine you're setting your feet in these right off of, right out of the box. You have a motion discrepancy, in your leg length just because of the elevation difference in your shoes. And then more so, we started to look at people's wear patterns. Are they more pronated or supinated in their feet? And then you can tell kind of a little bit more of what's going on in your client's movement pattern in their hips and everything. So that was a fun thing to see. Just I've done it before, but just to have a reminder over and over, these are different ways that we can address as a coach what our client's movement pattern is. Not just looking at them, not just watching their gait, but let's say, hey, let's take a look at your shoes. And we went over assessing, ankle mobility and all that kind of fun stuff. And then he's got a whole list of different exercises based off pronation, supination, and all that kind of fun things. And too long to get into now, but it was just exciting to reinforce that, how much we talk about the integration of feet and hips and shoes. Like we love the barefoot shoes, and he had some instances even where the elevated shoes were good for you. So he wasn't like
Oh, yeah.
just gung ho. Everybody needs to be minimalist barefoot shoes, even though he wears those himself. He's like, there are instances even when the elevated is appropriate for you, especially if you've got an extreme. I think it was in this case your pelvic tilt, and like you're leaning forward, and
Yeah.
that way movement pattern. But then to constantly reassess and reassess until you get into the correct posture, and then you adapt your shoes to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, definitely looking at the whole picture, and that's what you're looking at. So you're taking out all the data points I do every day as a physical therapist, looking at all these spots, looking at how the person moves, but also looking at, how they're integrating with their environment, which includes obviously the shoes. Most of us aren't barefoot. So we're trying to find ways to get people to move correctly, and then looking at how they're feeling with that. And yeah, it's interesting you mentioned with the shoes that are made in China, or they're made by for $5 and they sell them for $200, and here you go, and they get all these things that are different about them. The last might be different, might be causing some sort of thing. So it's always good to look at, but always looking at how the body can adapt to that environment. So and also just looking at the points of how your data points of what has been helpful, what's not been. So I always have clients, especially with plantar fasciitis, knee pain, hip pain, etc., looking to see what their shoe is doing for them. If they need to shift that, we usually have them go to a running store locally, and I love having them go to Foot Traffic usually. Fleet Feet are great too, but basically having someone who really knows a lot about all those aspects of the shoe is super helpful. And then also being able to kind of notice, hey, when I shift to this, or I have this insole or whatever, that creates that shift of hey, that really made a big difference. Or I have now some room in my toe box, now I'm not squishing my foot as much. And so all these things are a part of the whole picture, and it's not everything, as it's just looking at the whole what things are the glaring differences we need to make emphasis on to make a shift in how our body moves right away, especially with trying to exercise and stay healthy. Just looking at how that all works together. If one side's more than the other, looking at wear patterns on one side, or hey, they tend to be pushing off. Then obviously gait analysis too. I mean, I look at people's gait, how they moving, and see if they're shifting to one side, or their foot's pointing out, and you go, oh, that's where that wear pattern's happening on that outside of that heel, or they're really pushing off on this other foot because they're offloading on the painful side, or they don't get much hip extension on one side on exam, and then you can see that because they don't get that foot behind them, and then they don't push off that foot because it doesn't get behind their body. And so yeah, all these things are super important. It's interesting to say, hey, it's not been known or whatever. Like, I guess maybe that's true, but I think the knowledgeable therapists, the folks who really look into full whole body gait analysis, movement analysis. That's what I do for runners. I'm looking at all the things, their adaptations, what are they doing for their mileage? All these things go into a factor of what we need to do for an intervention for them, and then giving them exercises that they need to do, not just but also mobility movements, like exercises that kind of help get those going, or manual therapy, whatever needs to be done. So many things. It's really kind of fun. I love it. It's a good time to kind of figure it out, but not to get too lost in the woods too. But that's why you come to see the professionals. It's good to have this knowledge, and you can kind of work and hash through this with some local people just getting the right shoe. But also when things are kind of getting stuck and you can't figure out where it is, that's why, even with myself, I need someone to look at what I'm doing. It's hard for me to notice what I'm doing, even with being a PT. I kind of think I know, and sometimes that's my danger, is that I think I know, and actually I don't. I just get the ego out of the way, understand that there's other folks who can take a better look at me, has a different perspective, and then being able to give me the right advice that will actually move the needle where I want to go. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's great stuff.
Well, as health practitioners, we're probably the worst at self-diagnosis. We just, yeah, like you said, have to get the ego out of the way and work with people because we can't see parts of ourselves sometimes. It's like, how many angles and mirrors can you have to watch your movement? And
Yeah.
also, we don't know what we don't know sometimes. So maybe somebody has a little bit of a deeper knowledge into our blind spots. So it's always a fun thing to cross communicate with other professionals.
Yep. Always the case for sure.
So I'm going to go quick because I can't go over everything that I learned, but there are three things that I really wanted to share with you because these are fun. We've been talking about some of these. It was exciting for me to get reinforced, but also they blew my mind with a lot of different things that were new for me. So one of the things was we were talking about gait movement and balance and how your big toe is integral to your core stability and balance. But then there's this chain of connective tissue that goes like from your big toe to your pelvic floor, but primarily your posterior pelvic floor. And so instead of thinking Kegels, they nicknamed it as Kugels. So you're holding in the posterior part. They call it the muscle is the levator ani. So you're feeling like you're
Yep.
holding. You got to go to the bathroom, but you're holding it in that way.
Yep.
So
Yep.
forcing it that way, and they did all these stages where it goes all the way up. And this what blew my mind is like you push your tongue to the roof of your mouth
Yep.
and more stability.
Yep.
Hadn't heard or read that one yet.
Yep.
So we did all of these exercises, and then you can even extend your fingertips or contract your fingertips so that all of your fascial tension and musculature is focused on engaging the fullness of the core. So we did these experiments where you're just standing up. Let me see if I can get back far enough. And you can just feel all these things as you lean forward slightly. You can feel your toes grip in a little bit more. That's like automatic. But then when you feel that posterior pelvic floor raise up, then you have even more ability to stand firm in your balance. And then you engage with the breath, breathing out, and then push the tongue up and engage either with fists or like this. And I was doing this with a lot of my clients just to validate that it wasn't in my head because I experienced it. But sure enough, we did all these contractions and then we let one go at a time and then release. And then we get all this body awareness. And then sure enough, my clients are feeling like, yeah, I can feel more activation. It's a little bit subtle, but then when we're doing balance work, I can say now push your tongue harder against the roof of your mouth and watch them become more stable.
Yeah.
And it works with my seniors that I have in coaching or in my chair yoga or my yogis in the regular yoga class. It works across the spectrum. So it's just more I have to cue less as far as what I was cueing before, and I've got these little subtle cue ideas. But pushing the tongue to the roof of the mouth was nothing I'd ever even thought of before. So, but it connects the whole chain. I always say from nose to toes or toes to nose, but I was thinking posterior chain, how it wraps around here,
Oh
and now
yeah.
the anterior chain comes up all the way. You're pushing it in. But I'm thinking more holistically now, internally. Anterior, posterior, all these different things. So even though I preach, full integration and everything, I'm still learning more and more, kind of inside and out and everything. So that was exciting for me.
Yeah.
So that's a fun one for everybody to try. Just the different, different
Yeah.
state angles of, gripping your toes all the way up through the whole thing.
Yeah, and it reminds me a lot of what I do in chi running and do a class where we do a body awareness exercise. It's all about awareness. It's not really, the more all you did was just kind of tell people of paying attention to different things as you went through a movement. It really isn't that much more complicated than just like, people are all about mindfulness, et cetera. It's just like, no, all you're doing is just noticing things as you're moving in different areas that you weren't paying attention. All of a sudden, that's what meditation is. All these things are just drawing your attention to certain areas. You draw the neck, the tongue to the things together. That's great. You mentioned fascia that you say. I say fascia, but that is connective tissue envelops the brain and the cranium, and everything kind of goes into this area. So the glossopharyngeal nerve, all this stuff that goes, the facial nerve, all the things that I've been trained on, all these different things, really fascinating. You just you can even just do little tongue movements, and I think we did one with the jaw. Remember, like we did that where we just moved the jaw. um, Huge connections to all those things. Adding in eye movement with tension is really helpful too. So many cool things. Really, it's just about figuring out, with a guided help, giving some people a little more insight on how their body's moving, give them something where the light bulbs go off on like how they're doing and noticing what shifts when they do it. And that's what you do really well in your clients and that's what we do here in PT. I mean, I could just give people a handout of exercises to do, and that's where people are going to YouTube and they're just doing different movements. And there's so many cool exercises on Instagram, but like, do they have time? Do people have the attention span of a goldfish? No, they don't. And they just go over and move in that way, whatever they feel like it is. And it's amazing how terrible that movement when they do it is compared to that, because they weren't cued onto what to do. And so, I mean, people don't want to come into PT because, the cost or whatever, but the cost of doing something terrible and learning it in a bad way is just setting yourself down a pattern that's not going to be easy to fix later on. So just in the short term thinking, I'm just doing more exercise to get better. If you're doing that by overextending your back with every hip extension, or really flaring your ribs with certain motions, or hiking your shoulders up or tensioning up, thinking you're doing something good, or I tried all the exercises, I've done all the PT movements and it didn't work. Well, did you actually get cued on what they needed to do? Did you actually get the sense of what, did you have the time to slow down with a one-on-one PT personal trainer or PT physical therapist that really can zone in on what you need to be feeling? And putting my hands on a certain spot, do you feel that now when I press against here, how that's different than what you were doing before? Light bulbs go off, go, oh, that's what you mean, because they were just hinging from whatever they were trying the best because they're tight in a certain area or whatever. That's the value. That's the value of the things that we're talking about, is really cueing into, oh, I noticed, yeah, that levator and I think, like, great, like starting to kick on those certain muscles. We talk about drawing in the muscles from the adductors into the pelvic floor. That's super helpful once we can kind of know what we're doing, but also just getting that timely feedback in ways that that you're doing it right. That's why people come in and get the instruction from the PTs, because otherwise, I'm happy to give a home exercise program and you just do it on your own. I just know that that's not going to be very effective. It will help probably to some degree, and I find that some movements we can teach on their own, and you don't need to come in very often. I'd rather that be the case, but a lot of times you just need a few little things to kind of key into the things that you need to do to get better. And once you got those down and they're reinforced, and it creates a new movement pattern that you own now you're cooking, and then you can scale up to that. So super important stuff. It's worth the time spent now while you're going through the issues, so then you can do what you want to do, which is, crank out reps at the gym and go running a lot and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where we get to the fun things. But yeah, you got to go through the integration.
Exactly. I love that point. It reminded me, I mean, this was before YouTube sensations. I think this was even before YouTube even came out. I personally have this experience, not on YouTube, but I did Taibo a lot growing up,
Yeah.
Richard stuff, and P90X, and I loved all of that. And in my mid 20s, I started doing, I gave up like bodybuilding kind of stuff, and I started doing P90X, and I ran 6 miles a day. And I started getting injured a lot, and I started gaining weight a lot. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm exercising every day. And so I ended up hiring my own personal trainers and realized that there's a difference between training and exercise. And exactly what you were saying. And so that changed my whole world, because I went from my normal weight to gaining up to about 300 pounds doing all of these things. And part of it was I wasn't resting enough. I was overtraining.
Yep.
I was eating the what I thought were the right things, but some of them was the right things at the wrong time. Too much caffeine at the wrong time. I wasn't paying attention
Yep.
to this. And so it's kind of like sometimes more isn't what you need. Maybe less is what you need, resting more, recuperating. But I was just pounding out all these reps of, all these leg things, but then reinforcing an imbalance that I had in my hip.
Yeah.
So that's where PT comes in. That's where personal training comes in really well, to show you, it may look the same, but are you balancing more on your all on your toes and lifting your heels up, or are you pushing only on your heels and not getting your big toe engaged, or your other toes? All these little things, they may look the same unless your shoes, are off. But though all those things make a huge difference. Are you leaning too far to the side? Are you falling into your hip? Is your ankle rolling over? All those little things I don't even know to look out for. So yeah, I really that comment. It's like we can do all these exercises all day, but are we reinforcing our dysfunction?
Yes, absolutely. That's true. We're just trying to make sure that we're I'll show you my guide here in the back. I have this in my I don't know if I showed you this, Nick, but like I have this thing called Mount Dumore. And basically we try to get to the phase one of injury, helping your injury feel better. The next phase is then getting to the root cause. And then to help you be your Sherpa up the mountain, we're kind of getting overload things. So we got to build our muscle integrity. We got to build on gains, get as symmetric as possible, but then we're going to go up and down. I probably can't see that too well, but the idea being that we need a guide to get up here. If you've never been up that mountain, it's going to be really tough for you to do it yourself, all by yourself, right? I wouldn't go climb Mount Rainier without a guided trip. I mean, I'd be part of the crevasse. Like, that's scary as hell. Like, it's scary as hell with a guide. And so being with somebody who's been up 1,000 times, I'd rather go with that. So, pay for speed. That's what the thing is. People are coming in for therapy or for personal training. That's why you're coming in doing the work with somebody who knows what your body needs and guide you through that. Just like, hey, once you found that trainer who gave you some insight on like all these things that you're kind of going up the mountain in the dark without any clue, and throwing things at the wall, hoping they'd stick, thinking more is better. And gosh, I run into people all the time with that. Runners who just kind of keep irritating themselves and never get off the schneid with that injuries because they just never have someone sit down with them and hash out what they actually need to do to take the small steps to get up the mountain, to up level themselves. And that's kind of where they just continue to stay stuck. And it's just so sad. I just see too many people. And even when people come in and they still don't want to do PT, I'm like, really? And then I just know the repercussions of not doing something 5 years from now, how that goes, especially someone like me who's 45. When you get towards 50 and stuff, like the whole body shifts so much. And if you're not staying active, you're going to go down. And, then I'm not going to say it's too late, but you're going to wish that you would have spent that time now. I always tell people, honor that future self. That future self is going to be so happy that you did the decisions to stay with your training program, listening to your coaches, finding new insights every day, and learning something new about how you move and how your body is. And just like, that's your integration with the world. As babies, that's what we did, right? Everything came to the mouth and we were wiggling around. Now we're a little older, but we have these interconnections that a lot of times with just staying in our head, busy in our day, we get into our bodies at least, every day to find something to be able to work on. I do my Qigong every day. I'm feeling energy up and down, right? So I do my runs. I'm doing those kind of things. And so learn more about yourself. And, a lot of times you need that extra help, and that's super important.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to have to start wrapping it up, but I think I'll save some of these other things for another time. I learned a lot about shoulder function and dysfunction. and some fun things I'd love to share, but I want to take a good amount of time. Also upcoming, I want to kind of get a blip into the future. We're going to work with one of our trainers here also, Jess, who has running groups. She runs with you sometimes as well, I believe.
Yeah.
She's putting out on her running groups questions for us. So
Yeah.
and kind of ask us some questions, and we get to all talk about it. So I look forward to when we can find the schedule for all of us to get
Uh-huh.
together. And then also next Friday, not this coming one, but August 2nd, the trainer McKenna and I are going to lead a women's health discussion about PCOS, that's polycystic ovarian syndrome. We're going to talk about endometriosis. We're going to talk about SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And we're also going to talk about insulin resistance. And then so I'm not going outside of my scope of practice. I'm going to just educate on kind of describing what these are, and then how myself as a nutrition coach and a fitness coach can help with these areas for women, but also kind of create a community of support where women can find health practitioners that have helped them, because a lot of times it's hard to get a diagnosis. It's hard. Sometimes I've had experiences with my clients where their medical practitioner hasn't been taking them seriously. So that's a common theme. So I want to help direct a community of support, and then guide people to healthcare practitioners who can really give support based off of the experience that these women have had. Have had really good support by these practitioners. So it's just about education. I don't have any diagnosis skills or prognosis skills. I just want to bring awareness, and I want to start a conversation. So that's going to happen August 2nd.
Awesome. Sounds good. Awesome.
You have anything coming up for your Chi running group?
Yeah, so I'll do a chi running class at the Foot Traffic store on August 4th. It's a Sunday, and so I'm gonna have a good group of folks. I'm gonna try to get some of my Hood to Coast team going. I got to get a lot of people ready for Hood to Coast, and maybe some of my high school runners as well. And anybody else is welcome in the community. It's a free class. I'll probably limit it to about 10 or 15 people. There should be an Evite link that will be sent out from Foot Traffic. So if you're on Foot Traffic's list, you'll get it. Otherwise, I'll try to post it in social at Trent Corey DPT. But basically, yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to get to, building up more runners. I'm doing more coaching in Skyview this summer, or this summer and into fall here. So excited about that. Also, at the end of the class, I will also have I will bring my soft wave machine, which is sitting right over there. I will bring that to Foot Traffic. So I'm just going to show people it, demo it a little bit. And then for a significant discount, if you want to try it right then and there, you can do so, or just schedule, an assessment here to try it out. It's revolutionary technology, helps with pain, kind of right on the spot, but also just takes a series to improve, but you're actually helping the cellular processes that modulate inflammation and healing so your body can get better. And it's been great for my runners, been great for so many folks. Happy to share it with so many people. So excited to bring that, and we'll be doing more of that, those kind of events with different places in the near future. So it should be great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's August 2nd for my talk, and that's also free. And then August 4th for yours, and that's a free thing. And I highly encourage everybody to try out that machine. It is revolutionary. I've had a couple of treatments, and it is fantastic immediately. But the long-term effects, I've gone into the science. I've researched a lot. It's fantastic. It's good. It's good therapy, man.
Awesome. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's great. So, well, thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic week until we meet again. And we'll post a lot of the links for our upcoming events on social media. So if you don't see a link in YouTube, ask for it. But I probably will put a lot of that up on Facebook. But have a fantastic time, everybody.
All right. Take care, Nick.